Today, we're gonna do a little bit of an astro chat. Hello, my loves. Welcome back, or welcome if you are new. I'm Gabrielle Dejoie. If you enjoy content such as mental health, wellness, spirituality, and new motherhood stuff, then please subscribe, stay around, join the family. I would love to have you. And make sure you like this video. Today, we're gonna get into a little bit of an astro chat. I'm hoping that this can be your guide to prepping for Mercury retrograde. I feel like in the last several years, it's become this popular culture thing that we all kind of freak out a little bit when Mercury retrograde comes around. It's come around to even being like jokes like, oh, Mercury's in Gatorade, Mercury's in retrogrades, Mercury's in microbraids. Now, Mercury retrogrades, which means the planet seemingly moves backwards about 3 to 4 times a year. And it's happened since we were little. It will keep happening. Really, this is nothing new. It's just our awareness around it is a little bit more new than not. So I want to give you a guide. I want to share some tidbits to help this period of time to go a bit more smoothly for you. Because the thing about retrogrades, it's not here to ruin your life, although it can seem like that sometimes. I feel you. They are actually here to tear away, strip away what no longer needs to be there, what's not healthy for you, habits that are not healthy for you, people that are not healthy for you. It's here to bring back into focus something, whether that's where you need to place your awareness, bring things back into focus that maybe were not done before. So for example, we hear a lot about car problems during Mercury retrograde. If you get your maintenance as you should, you probably won't have car problems during Mercury retrograde. It's usually when something has gone far too long and we have put it off and put it off and put it off. And finally at Mercury retrograde, it's like, I'm gonna show you what you didn't do and how that's gonna affect you if you keep going like this. This is gonna be a pretty timeless video, but as I'm filming this, Mercury retrograde is coming up again. May 10th, 2022 at around 7:47 a.m., Mercury is going to go retrograde. And it'll go back direct on June 3rd at, I want to say it's like 4 a.m. And this is all Eastern time. What this means is Mercury will seemingly be moving backwards. It means that their power isn't as strong. It's not as like full force as if it's moving direct. It's kind of in this rest phase. Just because Mercury goes retrograde on a certain day and goes direct on a certain day doesn't mean that we're not going to be feeling the feels of this retrograde before a little bit that day and after a little bit the day it goes direct. There is a pre-Mercury retrograde shadow, and this happens about 2.5 weeks before the day that it goes retrograde and after the day that it goes direct. It doesn't mean that you can't do certain things in this period. In fact, it doesn't mean you can't do certain things that I'm going to say during Mercury retrograde. It's just about being aware, double, triple, quadruple checking. Make sure that you give yourself ample time, that you have some flexibility with your time. Stuff might go haywire. Planes might be late. You only have 5 minutes to get your coffee before you are going to be late for X, Y, and Z. You might not need to get that coffee. Just know that the shadow of retrograde, it can also impact us, and we can also be feeling them or even seeing the effects earlier than we expect when we say, oh, Mercury retrograde is going to be on May 10th. Well, you might be feeling it 2 weeks before May 10th. I'm going to break down this video into a couple different topics. And the first topic, we're going to talk about pre-Mercury retrograde prep. So what can you do to help your Mercury retrograde period go a little more smoothly? One, I'm going to talk about car maintenance. If you have been putting off your car maintenance, putting it off, and you haven't had an oil change in over a year, chances are that Mercury retrograde is going to be that time when your car breaks down, your car stops, your car stalls, what have you, because Mercury retrograde, Mercury is the planet of communication. It's the planet of words. It's the planet of thoughts. It's the planet of technology, okay? Because technology is communication. So we find that things go haywire around communication. Vehicles, trucks, buses, planes, all those things being categorized into communication and technology. Get your car maintenance prior to Mercury retrograde or even before the shadow period. If you have to get your car done during Mercury retrograde, or if you're doing your car during Mercury retrograde, make sure that you're taking your time or that you're going to somebody who really knows what they're doing and has done this many, many times before. The likelihood is higher during Mercury retrograde that you might miss a step, that you won't put something in the right place. And so it really has to be something that you are very well versed in if you're working on something during Mercury retrograde. I've gotten my car maintenance during Mercury retrograde because I realized I had to do something like a car trip or a road trip. And I said, I'm going to get my maintenance before I get on the road during Mercury retrograde. It's just something to make sure that you're going to reputable places during Mercury retrograde, and make sure if you're doing it that you know what you're doing. Don't have it be the first time that you've ever worked on a car. Second thing is to back up important documents, photos, okay? I'm talking about this is pre-Mercury retrograde. If you have important documents on your computer and you have a hard drive, back those things up. Back up your videos, back up your photos, make sure they are downloaded to the cloud before Mercury goes into retrograde, because not only does it take a longer time to download, but there can be glitches. You might randomly lose this paper you've been working hours on. Just avoid it, sis. Avoid it. Make sure that you are backing things up, saving them. Make sure your hard drive is in a safe place away from any water. I'm talking, go the extra mile to secure your technology and your things that you are storing in your technology. Another pre-retrograde tip is to plan trips. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but Mercury retrograde is actually a great time to travel, but know that you might hit snags, you might hit delays. Factor that into your travel plans. If you are going to travel during a Mercury retrograde period, make sure that you book your plane tickets, your bus tickets, your train tickets ahead of time. If you are going to rent a car, make sure your car is rented and you have those reservations. If you're booking a hotel, make sure that you have booked that hotel prior to retrograde, and then that you call your hotel to confirm your reservation, because during retrograde, reservations might just fly out the window. Something was never booked. Things are not in their system correctly. Orders were never made correctly. And you're just like, what am I going to do now? So make sure that once you book, if you book before retrograde, make sure that you call to confirm any kind of things, okay? Especially if you're renting a car, booking a flight, make sure that you're double checking the dates, the times, and that you're getting a confirmation of sorts prior to flying out to somewhere, and then you realize, oh, they don't have a hotel booked for me at all. Cool. Oh, all the hotels are booked. Cool. What do I do now? Just save yourself some headache and call ahead, confirm, do a little of the legwork up front to prevent disasters or mishaps on the back end. My last thing for pre-retrograde is, if you can, have important discussions or talks that you have to have with people prior to retrograde. If you know that you've been wanting to talk to your boss about a raise, have that conversation before we enter retrograde, because your communication skills, the ability to be heard and understood, is going to be a lot better beforehand instead of during the retrograde period. If you want to have a specific conversation with a spouse or a loved one or a family member that might be a little touchy of a topic, try to have that conversation prior to retrograde, or even holding off until after retrograde to engage in that discussion. The chances and likelihood to be misunderstood or your words to be misconstrued during Mercury retrograde is just really high, okay? So you want to have those conversations either prior to or after if you can help it. Now let's get into the warnings, okay? Things to avoid during Mercury retrograde. I would absolutely not purchase a new laptop during Mercury retrograde period, or a new phone or a new car. In fact, I've made my fiance wait until after Mercury retrograde to purchase something for me. He gets annoyed every season because I'm like, don't purchase any electronics. Don't do it right now. If you purchase an electronic during Mercury retrograde, you might find that there are bugs in it. Hard drives and computers are going to crash more often. The iPhone is going to have bugs if it comes out during Mercury retrograde, and then, a couple months later, they'll fix the bugs, but now you have to go and trade in your phone or something like that. There's just things that go really wonky with technology, with vehicles, that kind of stuff. And so you don't want to make a super big purchase, especially if it's around technology or vehicles. No buying new cars, no buying new large electronics or small electronics even might go out in a couple days or a couple weeks, or maybe you'll find right after retrograde ends, it's not working anymore. I would not buy programs, if you're doing videos and you're buying editing software, I would not buy a program during Mercury retrograde. Now, sometimes we can't help it. We have to purchase certain things at certain times, and that's fine. In that case, I would just say make sure you keep your receipt in a safe place. Make sure you buy a warranty on that item, and that you have the capability to go back to whoever you purchased it from to deal with anything should something go haywire or go wrong. Another thing not to do during Mercury retrograde would be to sign leases on apartments, to be buying a new house or signing the documents during Mercury retrograde, to enter into a new job or signing a contract for a new job. Basically, starting anything new during a Mercury retrograde period can have a tendency to end up being something that you're not really satisfied with, because communications are at rest, contracts and words, right, are a little bit misconstrued. It might be something that you had this idea, you thought this might be a good opportunity for you, but really when you get to work and you start working at this new position, you understand, wow, this is something I really hate doing. This is something that really doesn't make me happy. And so if you can put off, accepting a new job position or what have you, make sure that you're doing it outside of Mercury retrograde. As I said, this is not always possible. Sometimes, especially in this market right now, if you're buying a home, you need to buy it, you need to do it. But just know it might be something that you do want to ask for a home inspection. You do want to make sure that you do your due diligence, read over the whole contract, read over all of your benefits and terms to the lease that you're signing. Documentation, paperwork, all those things can have either hidden agendas, hidden clauses in them. We can kind of tend to overlook those things during Mercury retrograde. It's best to try to not sign anything, any legal documents. It's just a wise idea to, like I said, double, triple, quadruple check anything that you are going to put your signature on. As well, getting any new legal documents during this time can be really hairy. If you are getting a birth certificate printed out for your child, if you're getting a new social security card, if you're getting a passport done during this time, double, triple, quadruple check, because the likelihood that there is a typo or an error or that there was a miscommunication, if you are verbally telling somebody the numbers or the letters or the spelling of something, is very high. I had to do certain things like this and had an error come out on my documents, even though I double checked, okay? Because I didn't go slowly enough and take my deep breaths. I let somebody else rush me and things went wrong. Luckily, it's not a huge error that I made, but it's significant and would take a lot of work to get redone. Okay, if you have a passport printed, you know you don't want to have a major mistake on your passport, right? You want it correct and done the first time, because it's going to be a lot of money and headache and cost and time to get that new passport if something is wrong. Another thing you might not want to do during retrograde would be to actually book or purchase travel or make plans for something. This is, once again, it's not always an unavoidable situation. Sometimes you got to do things when you got to do them, but the chances that you might make a mistake, pick the wrong day, show up to the airport a day early, right? All of those things might happen if you're purchasing or making plans during Mercury retrograde. A big thing to know is to not start a new business, just like we talked about not starting new things, right? A new job or buying a new car, buying a new home, signing leases. Starting a new business or sharing that you have started a new business, it's not the best time to communicate that, right? It's not the best time to start something, especially if you have a business around communication and dealing with people. It's not necessarily the time to start that business during Mercury retrograde, because the energies of Mercury, of communication, of words, of understanding, of thoughts, those things are not like solidly in place. It's not stable. It's not moving forward at its appropriate speed. In fact, it's moving backwards, right? It's slowed down. It's stalled. And so starting a new business during Mercury retrograde might mean that it takes a lot longer for your business to get off the ground, for people to see you or notice you as a business, to give you a loan for your business, etc. It's just not a great time to start new things. If you are, say, a writer, make sure you're not leaving a big project such as your book to edit during Mercury retrograde. Make sure you have some time after retrograde to re-edit that, because although the creativity can be at an all-time high during Mercury retrograde, it's a great time to write, but it's not a great time to edit, because typos, the way that we speak and try to convey our message can be a little wonky. Other people, it's like I'm saying ABC and other people are hearing CBD, okay? And so it's just a better time to write and be creative, use your creativity, but then things that needed to be edited down or double and triple checked, try to put that task off until after retrograde. So I'm gonna go into some specific warnings here. These are things you really need to look out for, really be aware of. Warnings: be careful on the road. People aren't paying as close of attention. It's kind of like our heads can be kind of jumbled. We're in our thoughts and kind of in this dreamy state, and we're not paying as much attention. We're not being aware of what's really there. In fact, Mercury retrograde can kind of like create this oddity of like not seeing what's really there. Just like I was talking about with communication being off and the way that we understand and take in information being a little off, right? That goes for visually. And so people just might not see you. There tends to be a lot more road rage during Mercury retrograde. People are speeding. They're trying to get somewhere. Let them stay behind. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time and space to get where you're trying to go. Do not book things back to back if you can. Make sure you have time to get where you need to be safely. And that goes into my next point. Leave early and prep early. Make sure that you give yourself ample time to transport yourself somewhere. Know that there might be a crazy accident that makes you 20 minutes late to something. If you have something that's like deadline, I have to be there at this specific time, make sure you give yourself a lot of cushion in terms of time from getting to from point A to point B. Know that you might still be held up. Chalk it up to, hey, stuff happens. Carry extra batteries. If I don't normally, I will always keep a rechargeable battery pack for my phone on me during Mercury retrograde. If you're working on a laptop, make sure that the laptop is plugged in. Make sure you're saving it regularly and often. If you're writing something, if you're creating a document, if you're doing anything that's of value, make sure that you're using that save button quite often. Make sure you're backing stuff up as you go. Make sure you have like batteries for phones, for cameras, for whatever electronics. Just make sure you have batteries, smoke alarms even. Make sure that you are carrying and stocked up on extra batteries for everything. Make sure you have a charger to connect your phone to that rechargeable battery, okay? Make sure that you are not caught in a bad situation if you're out and about and there is a delay or there is something that pushes back everything. Another tidbit, carry blue stones, crystals, throat chakra stones or crystals. This is a blue calcite. Blue calcite is great for the throat chakra. Blue stones in general are great for the throat chakra, but it really helps you to speak more clearly, speak concisely, okay? It helps you to speak so that somebody else can understand what you're trying. It helps you to convey your message in a more clear way. Carrying blue stones, keeping blue chakra stones on you can be very helpful for Mercury retrograde. Another warning is to double, triple, and quadruple check all communications. If you're sending out an email that is very important, make sure you are editing it and go back and go back and go back. Now, if you send an email and don't hear a response and it's kind of urgent, go ahead and send a follow-up email, because there's also this potential for emails to just get lost. It's like, I didn't even see that text. I didn't even know you texted me, right? You don't even have the blue dot next to your text. You're like, I didn't see it. I didn't open it. I don't know where that came from, right? Same with emails. So if you're emailing a potential employer, it's like, make sure that you are following up with them, so that to say like, did you get my first email? I want to make sure that whatever, I have sent is received. And we already covered this. I would not buy electronics or make large purchases during Mercury retrograde. The chances of those things either not working, going out, having some type of bugs or issues, or the same model and product will come out after Mercury retrograde on sale. All those things are quite high. So try to bide your time. If you're purchasing like a new camera, for example, and you need it during that period, well, try to see if you can hold off, because there might be a sale for you in the near future if you hold off until after retrograde. Okay, let's talk about activities and things that are really good to do during Mercury retrograde. I think I mentioned before that creativity can be at an all-time high. Working with your hands, doing stuff that just involves your mind, like dreaming kind of thing. All those things can be really powerful during Mercury retrograde. So if you are a writer, this can be an excellent time to kind of move past any writer's block or any of that stuff. Just write, just journal, just, get it out, get it on paper. It might not fully make the sense you want to, but after the retrograde period, if you go back and edit that, you might have your next $1 million idea. Things like spa days or taking some time to self-pamper can also be really great activities during Mercury retrograde. Another thing to do during Mercury retrograde is to go within. When we talk about retrograde, right, retrograde, we're talking about rewriting, reassessing, reviewing, resting. Okay, all the things that start with RE are generally a good thing to do during Mercury retrograde. So revisiting places of your childhood or places that you've been before, to be able to review and say, wow, like, oh my gosh, I've come so far. I've done so much. I've grown so much, right? Can be really powerful. It can also be really powerful and heartwarming to visit, old friends, to get in touch with people you haven't talked to in a while, seen in a while, heard from in a while. If they are, people that bring a positive space to your psyche, people that bring positive vibes into your life, it's definitely a great time to reconnect. There's another reword. Another warning is to be aware of who's going to be texting you. If you get messages from your ex, just be vigilant, sis. Be vigilant. I would say that if you get messages during retrograde from your ex, the hey, you up, or hey, I miss you, I was thinking about you, right? It might not be divine intervention. It might be a test to see if you're going to pass this lesson this time or if you're going to replay the lesson over and over again. So just handle things accordingly. Make sure you're not losing your head when it comes to who is messaging you during retrograde. Another activity to do during retrograde is to rework or revisit products. Say you already have a business. This one product or, thing that you're selling, that you are marketing, is not moving the way you'd like it to. Reworking and revisiting, another right, for both of those, can be really beneficial. You can kind of see, okay, what has been working, what has not, and how can I kind of switch it up and move forward with it. This can also go for re-editing, like for reworking your website. You might decide, okay, I want to switch up some things. You can do that, but I would say make sure you have a handle on editing your website, how to get it back if things go wrong, if you don't like it, or maybe make notes, right? Handwritten notes about what you'd like to edit on your website. And then after retrograde, you can go in and put in those notes, put in those changes so that you don't have your whole website crash potentially. It can also be a great time to rework your vision on something or to revisit a project that maybe you put down for now. If you have a whole notebook full of ideas, it might be a great time to go and revisit that notebook, go revisit those ideas and see what jumps out at you at that moment. What do you feel like captivates you and feels like, oh, let me flesh out this idea, this $1 million business. Let me flesh that out right now. Because like I said, creativity is great and at an all-time high during Mercury retrograde oftentimes. Another great hobby or thing to do during Mercury retrograde is to visit thrift stores. So when we're talking about revisiting old things, what is thrifting? It's old things. It's items that somebody else no longer had use for, items that you might find a treasure in. And so thrifting, you might find such a beautiful deal. You might find this beautiful cabinet that can be reworked and made into a beautiful altar or a beautiful piece for this specific room in your house. It's just a great time to go and look at basically old reworked things. Another activity that is great to do during Mercury retrograde is to clean and declutter. It's something about going back in our space and clearing out that is really a great thing to do during Mercury retrograde, because that's exactly what retrogrades want us to do. It's like going over things that are and have been and seeing, does this still serve me? So cleaning out your closet, going through old paperwork especially, it's like we have a keener eye of what we need, what we don't, what is just clutter and junking up our home, our space, our desk, our mental space. Go and clean out your phone even. Clean out your contacts, identify who you no longer need to be associated with. All these things can be positive activities to do during Mercury retrograde. And I will say donating items that you no longer need, once again, really great during Mercury retrograde. Another activity is to double and triple check written words, okay? If you are sending a message to somebody that you love, make sure you're double checking. If you're sending a text to your boss, if you're sending a text message at all, make sure you're double checking. Am I sending it to my love or am I sending it to my boss? Because this is when you might get the text that was meant for, somebody's spouse and you're actually their coworker, okay? So make sure that you're just really intentional and slow it down when it comes to what you're sending out into the world, especially with like Instagram posts or, social media posts. It might be a time when you want to slow down, maybe even take a social media detox. That's also a great activity to do during Mercury retrograde, is to just remove yourself and kind of have that space to cleanse and clear your mind separate from all the energy that's on the ethers and the web. Making sure that we are intentional with what we're putting out. You might have a tendency to overshare or to say more than you'd like in, any other time. And you might go back and be like, why did I share this? Now it's on the internet, now it's out there, right? So it's just important to keep keep awareness around what am I sharing, what information am I providing to others, what information am I taking in, and really assess and be discerning with any information that's coming your way during Mercury retrograde. Lastly, another great activity to do during Mercury retrograde is indeed traveling to explore a new place or revisit an old place. Those things are great to do during Mercury retrograde. As I've said in other points in this video, the thing you want to look out for is making sure that you have some cushion. If you have to be back at work and it's like a non-negotiable, maybe book your trip back a day before you have to be at work. It's really important to give yourself time and space for things to go not perfectly as timely and as planned as you might believe. Give yourself flexibility. If you're somebody that likes things exactly as you like them, it's definitely a time to let go a little bit and allow things, like I said, allow for flexibility in your schedule, in your mindset, in what you are doing. It actually might be a great time to explore something new, like a hobby, or seeing what you might enjoy. You're not committing, right? I think committing is the difficult thing during Mercury retrograde that can get things a little bit wonky, but you are exploring what else is out there for me. So this is a great time to just tap into your creative side, tap into different things that you might enjoy and just see, does this work for me? Does it not? I think that about sums up my Mercury retrograde prep guide. Doing these things has helped me to have smoother times during Mercury retrograde and to just know what to look out for, what to be aware of, and to take a deep breath. Because this is a time of rest, renewal, okay, it's a great time to take a vacation, like I said, but it's also just a great time to take some days off work. It's a time to go within and just be with yourself, to take a breath and rest, re-energize, rejuvenate. Make sure that you're taking time to slow it down a little bit in all areas of your life as much as you can, because that's going to give you the energy with which to go forward when Mercury turns direct. So whether that is business, personal life, relationships, or whatever, it's just a good time to rest, reset, slow down, pull back a little bit so that you're reserving your energy and kind of building up that store of energy for when Mercury goes direct. I really hope this helped. If you enjoyed this, if it helped you at all, if it gave you some insight to Mercury retrograde or calmed your fears about Mercury retrograde, then please give this a big fat thumbs up. It really helps my channel. I really appreciate it. And make sure that you are subscribed. Subscribe to the channel, join us, and make sure you go and check out the What is this Mercury retrograde teaching me pick a card reading that I have. That reading is timeless, so go and check to see what this coming retrograde is going to be teaching you and helping you to grow through. I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.